up around 67% of our total population, which means majority of our country is young. But at the same time, this majority is not well equipped with the adequate ESD knowledge without the right tools and without guidance on how to respond to climate change and its effects. And that's why we are here today. This lecture will provide you with the basics and understanding of how ESD is practiced in countries like Germany and how civil society and government partner together to make sustainable practices affordable and possible. We aim to learn from Germanwatch, AIM, Ministry of Environment, NRW's experiences and see how those successful and widely accepted approaches can be adapted to Pakistan context. I encourage all of you to stay active, listen carefully, and reflect. You may also write down your questions for the Q session at the end, where our moderator will open the floor for questions. Thank you, everyone. Over to Mr. Didar, who is moderator for our today's lecture.
Thank you. Thank you, Muniba, and welcome to everyone, and especially welcome to Stefan. Thank you for joining us. So as mentioned by Muniba, today's event is organized by ClimateWatch, which works under the Northern Citizen Community Board, which is a UN-registered non-profit organization. And for this ESD lecture, we have 11 partner organizations who are working across Pakistan, spanning from Gilgit Baltistan, Balochistan, and beyond. In this coalition, we have Fridays for Future Pakistan, Zameek Balochistan, Climate for Pakistan, to Her Space, and all these organizations represent the breadth of Pakistan's youth in climate community, and we are together today to learn from the work of Germanwatch and how can we implement the educational for sustainable development in Pakistan and what kind of initiatives we are taking. So let me introduce our speaker and our guest, and we are truly honored to have Stefan Rostock. He is joining us from Germany, and Stephen is the head of the ESD 2030 program at Germanwatch, which is Germany's one of the leading civil society organization working on climate and global justice. His work spans developing the handprint concept, which he will mention in his talk, and also he has been partnering with the Ministry of Environment of the North Rhine-Westphalia, and he has contributed directly to the UNESCO ESD 2030 framework. And with this, we welcome you, Stephen, and thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation and the very nice and empowering introductory words. I share my slides, and I hope you all can see my slides.
Yes, these are visible.
That's great, because now you are completely disappeared and I speak to my slides, but I'm looking forward to seeing you and your questions afterwards. Thank you for having us, and thank you for starting this exchange on the handprint concept. And we are quite happy that we are now introducing the handprint concept to many countries, and always saying that this concept is coming from India originally, where a little girl called Shriya was working on environmental activism, and she was saying she don't want to work on the negative footprint, but on her positive handprint. And I'm very happy to take you with me on the journey around the positive handprint story. But first, let me introduce a few words for Germanwatch, our organization. We are based in Germany with offices in Bonn and Berlin, around 100 employees, and we call us a North-South development and environment organization. Our slogan is changing structures in the North. So we are more development organization aiming at making the global North more sustainable. And that's where, I need your support. The fields of activities are, we are the biggest team is working on climate, international climate policy and national climate policy, energy transformation, trade and agriculture, corporate accountability, future-proof finance, and then our small team, education for sustainability, for sustainable development, where you can see some activities on the right side of the banner. Education is always taking part in real concrete circumstances. And one circumstance which is already or has already been mentioned in the introduction is the climate crisis. Here you can see the last 800,000 years, and we are really bringing us out of this safe space of the Holocene, where humanity could develop, civilization could develop, iPhone, football, and all the other nice things which you know as well as I do. And the process is speeding up. So we are not right in the middle of the climate crisis, but the situation is worsening. And this is very much troubling the young generation. The older people, they just, they will not feel the consequences of the climate crisis. We are in the middle of the tipping element. Here you can see the core climate elements like coral reef die-off and the ice sheet and the other things. Those are elements already tipping at a temperature increase from 1 degree on. So we are already living in a situation where tipping elements are about to tip, and all tipping elements are in an active mode. So education cannot rely on 100 years looking back of experience, but education in the moment must prepare young people for a future where nobody knows what's really coming up. And this is a new situation for education. This is from our climate risk index. And here you can see that Pakistan is really one of the, or has been one of the countries mainly affected by the consequences of climate change. But you can also see in the 2025 climate risk index that countries in the global north are now more or less equally affected. The situation has changed over the last years. So what we need is to learn from the experiences of the global south in combating the consequences of the climate crisis. And this is a new window of opportunity for South-North dialogue. We are in the middle of the climate crisis, and we see that the burden, the risk of climate crisis is now shifting from an individual level. I myself in my hot room or in my small little garden or in my village, it's shifting towards more systemic risk, like food production for in a much higher scale. So we will see much more dangerous consequences of climate change. But let me talk about the much more empowering situation. We are at the same time living in the time of transformation. And this is, for people active in the field of education, something which really helps to motivate people to take part in this transformation. One thing which really helps us is that sustainability is much better understood. We now see here in the Oxfam donut that we have the ecological framework outside and the social boundaries inside, and between the social boundaries inside, which are the human and social human rights, and outside there are the ecological tipping points, and between those social and ecological boundaries there's a safe and just space for humanity. Something which you all know is are the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and when you give those 17 cards to young people and say, please can you order them in which is the most important SDG. Very often the picture looks like this. You have the ecological goals at the bottom, then you have the social goals in the middle, and then the economy on top, because economy can only work in a working social system, and social and cultural systems can only work in a healthy biosphere. We are living in times of transformation. Yes, some people would say now we have been living in, but no, I try to stick to this positive framing. We are living in times of transformation because there are so many positive aspects going on, electrification and so on. We have the Paris Treaty, which is really guiding the global community towards more climate protection. And education is the art to empower people to take part in the transformation of their surrounding, of the places where they live. But at the same time, where we see that in this picture, coal is the consumption of coal is really diminishing, is really decreasing in Germany, the powers of resistance are growing. And we see this especially in countries like the United States, Saudi Arabia, or Russia, where the fossil system is fighting back the transformation, and they are using all the weapons they have. They fight democracy, they fight the transformation industries, and very often they do it together with religious leaders. And they are fighting civil society, which makes it very difficult for civil society, also in Germany, not only in a lot of other countries, but also in Germany, to continue to work. But we see this as the last fight of the fossil fuel system, and the renewable system, the electrification, the decarbonization is coming, and there is nothing which can prevent it, because the fossil fuel system is coming to an end. And now we have to think about education in this system. And there was a nice long learning curve from UNESCO, coming from projects bringing ESD into schools. And now ESD 2030 is agreed by the UN General Assembly in 2019, and it's now for all countries the guiding principle for education for sustainable development worldwide. In Germany, we have a quite nice system based in the Ministry for Education, Family, Sports, and so on. There are a few more names. And they have a system, they have a platform organized with all the different actors in the education field to come together and develop national policies for education for sustainable development. Yes, you might know that in Germany, education is organized on a federal level, so they can just give recommendations, and that is what they are doing very well. They are working in the moment on recommendations on social cohesion and how ESD can support social cohesion. We are quite lucky that with the new election last year, this system could stay, even if there was a fundamental reduction in funding, and it moved from one Ministry of Research, into the Ministry for Families and Youth, which seems to be helpful, because now we have all fields of education in one ministry, and the platform is continued to work. So I've given you the link, and you will have all the slides afterwards to dive deeper into the German system. I'm the co-leader of the expert group on informal and non-formal education, which is all the education outside of school. And we are working on strengthening this informal sector. But for me, the most pressing message I want to get across is the message of ESD 2030. And the short summary is printed here next to a picture from our India, Tanzania, Germany action we had a few years ago. The main quote is to empower learners to transform themselves and the society they live in. This was from the Global Action Program, but now the UNESCO ESD 2030 is bringing this into context. And I want to give you some quotes. ESD for 2030, and I hope that most of you will have a look into this roadmap ESD for 2030 after the presentation, because it gives so many great ideas on how ESD and how education in general can be developed. First of all, transformation necessitates, among other things, a certain level of disruption, with people opting to step outside the safety of the status quo or the usual way of thinking, behaving, or living. And I'm quite happy to learn more and more people in the Global South who take this responsibility and they are being active for sustainability. My famous quote here, 4.7, ESD in action is basically citizenship in action. This gives you the hint that ESD is not something which belongs into schools, but ESD is something which belongs to lifelong learning in all your fields of activities, as a citizen, as an employee, as a learner, as a student, wherever you are. ESD is action in action is basically citizenship in action. ESD in the future will have to encourage learners to explore values which could provide an alternative to consumer societies, such as sufficiency, fairness, and solidarity. Very often we are already quite good in this, but we are not very much changing the consumer society. The second quote is, ESD can provide training for key stakeholders in the private sector and raise financial literacy to support sustainable economic practices. This is supported by the Paris Agreement that all financial flows should be in line with the Paris Agreement. And the last quote, which is one of my favorite, ESD also has to affect the unsustainable production patterns of current economic structures more directly. There's not written ESD also has to talk about unsustainable production patterns. No, they say ESD has to affect. And this is something where we will dive deeper into it, how ESD can affect society. The last quote here is, people have to be empowered to engage directly in the political process and advocate, for example, for appropriate environmental regulations for businesses. All those quotes are out of this roadmap, and if you find them in the first part of them, look in the annex. The annex is the part which has been decided by the UN General Assembly. I think what they demand is the whole institution approach. I have here some thoughts about whole institution approach. It's all institutions where learning and education is happening should go on the process of changing towards more sustainability. This starts with the foundations, the guiding principles, what they teach, how they train the management, how they train the staff members. Point 4 is, what kind of democratic practices can people learn by using them inside this institution. Then point 5 is all what we call the flows of material, water, energy, food, and so on, paper, the hard facts of sustainability. But we have to talk about the whole institution approach, whole community approach, or better, the whole society approach. And 2 thoughts on the whole institution approach. Number 6, I think, is the most important thing. When an institution is moving towards more sustainability, it's important that it talks about it. talks to staff, people, to learners, to pupils and students inside, but also to the community outside. And this helps really to change the institution and the society. And new research shows that the better an institution, a company is moving towards more sustainability, the healthier are the staff members, the longer they stay with the institutions, and the more identification they have with the institution. So it really helps to improve the health situation and the commitment of the workers in an institution when institutions are moving towards sustainability. This is the last chart of the UNESCO ESD 2030 roadmap, and I want to show you just on the bottom on the right side what is the main target group of ESD 2030. And it's not the poor third degree pupil, it's the target maker. It's policymakers, institutional leaders. They are the first target group of ESD 2030 because ESD 2030 is aiming to change the society the learners are living in. So this was my glimpse of information about the UNESCO ESD 2030 program. There's much more in it, but now I want to give you some ideas and some lessons learned we had on our last year's on the Germanwatch Education for Sustainable Development work. I do this later. First, I want to start with this one. Because we were quite successful with working on the ecological footprint. I hope all of you have heard about the footprint because in some ways it's helpful. We had this big 5 on how to improve your ecological footprint, and for some people it was really new that we included the sustainable investment. So what is your money being invested in when you are handing it over at the bank counter? And people can choose green products in all ways they want to invest their money. So this was our very successful work with the ecological footprint, but after a while we had to realize the higher the education is for learners, the higher the degree of education, the more money they will earn later, and the footprint will getting worse and worse. So the ecological footprint is not linked to political goals and political ideas, but the ecological footprint is linked to money available, to income. So the higher the education, the worse the footprint will be. And this gives us some questions on education and on footprint education in general. And then we look deeper into the footprint, and the footprint is coming from BP's communication office. And they shifted very successfully the focus of sustainability from structures in society into the field of private activities. And they helped that our societies for the last 30 years didn't change much when you look on the main structures in society. For education, it's a little bit difficult that the footprint is only focusing on negative aspects, CO2 emissions, land use, or water consumption. So all your negative aspects. But what we need is positive, motivating aspects of our work. Then we have the danger of rebound effects. And new studies show that when we make more and more footprint education, classes or groups or even societies are more and more torn apart into individualization, because everyone is working on his or her own footprint. But what we need is an education work which brings people together, and the ecological footprint is not very much bringing people together. So the conclusion on the footprint is, with education on the ecological footprint, we will never reach the commitments of the Paris Agreement. So that was the start of our handprint activities. We got the idea from Shreya in India, and then a pupil in our seminar he drawed this picture because he saw the difficulties that we want to train people to behave sustainable in a society with unsustainable structures. And the handprint helps people to change those unsustainable structures. And now it's more the core of my presentation is what is handprint? Handprint is to empower people to change structures in their own environment, tilt over the inclined plane, make sustainable behavior easier for other people if they realize it or not. Because sometimes we talk with a cook in a canteen and he said, yes, he went completely vegetarian, which is really difficult here in Germany. And we asked him, yes, wow, that's great, but how did you manage to do it? And he said, yes, we cooked well and we didn't talk about it. So they just helped other people to behave more sustainable, and maybe they don't realize it, that they are now more and more sustainable. Address different frameworks and persistent structures. When we work with schools on sustainability, very often they have these little campfires or the little actions or projects. But after this project, after this action, things are more or less the same as they have been before. So what we need are activities, actions, projects, which really change structures. So that after this project, mobility, food, canteen, or energy have really changed towards more and more sustainable approaches inside this institution or inside the community. So what we need is to go from everyday action to political commitments. Our school wants to be like, our community wants to reach this and that. So what learners must learn is to address decision makers and demand sustainable legislation from the political actors and sustainable business models from the economy. So we help to shape transformation and encourage others to participate, transform frustration and swoon into scopes and self-efficacy. This is, I'm so sorry, this is a slide in German, but you can see the different levels of activities from the schools to neighborhood groups to your municipality, and then going over to the municipality, to the national level, the European or the Asian level, and then to the global level. And the higher the level you are changing structures, the bigger the effect is. But it's very fine when you start in your neighborhood, when you start in your school, changing structures, because changing structures is a very interesting field of learning things. I've brought two examples and then I'm done with my presentation, and I hope it has not been too long. This is a school in Berlin, and yeah, I know it's one of those schools with a little bit rich kids living in a little bit more richer environment, and they, the higher classes, they had language courses, and the final course, they could go to Italy or England for a language exchange, but they went there by plane. And one of the pupils know that flying is the most effective way and the most the cheapest way harming the climate. And then she said, but this is not part of the values of our school. And she started a process, discussion, information. They started a climate club inside this school. And this climate club managed to establish rules for excursions, for language exchanges. So now they are not allowed to fly anymore. They have to take buses, and so they changed the targets. They changed the cities where they went for language exchanges, so that the footprint of the school is much smaller because they have changed the rules they are working in by a really impressive handprint action. And then my last example, and then I'm really looking forward to answer your questions and listen to your thoughts about the handprint, is the city of St. Gallen. They tried to sell green electricity. They had enough green electricity by water near to the Alps in Switzerland, but people didn't buy it. And then they asked the university, so what should we do to sell more green electricity? And the university said, what you do, you have the green electricity as something special. But what you should do is making green electricity as a standard, as a default option. And they changed the default option, the standard option, to the sustainable option. And after 2 years of advertising and changes, they came from 10 to roughly 90% of green clients. And we talked with the leader of the city of St. Gallen for the electricity sector and asked him, what was the main obstacle in your work changing most of the city consumers towards green electricity? And he said the main obstacle was himself, because he said, I cannot so overwhelm my clients. And by saying this, it was clear for him that for himself, the dirty electricity was the normal and green was something special and additional. And he said when he realized this, everything became much easier, because what we need to do is that the sustainable solution must always be the standard solution, the default option, the pre-installed way, or the standard decision in all decision processes. And then he's now doing lectures how to change electricity companies and how to make the standard option the sustainable option. And I realized that this example is a little bit outdated when I was sitting or giving a presentation a few weeks ago, and there was someone from a local energy company, and he said, yes, this example is a bit outdated because we don't sell any brown, any non-renewable energy anymore. We only sell renewable energy. And this was a really good example, seeing that we are living in times of transformation when electricity companies are moving to companies which are only sell the green, the standard model. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stefan, for that very insightful lecture. Thank you so much. And I hope all the participants have made notes, and I hope you will have a lot of questions to Stefan. So being the moderator, I have the privilege of asking the first question. Like from your experience in Germany, we see that Germany has successfully moved SDG from just a conceptual framework into an institutional practice through their policies. So in your experience, what were the critical policy levers that enable this transition? And if we kind of compare it to Pakistan, so what would be your thoughts or your suggestion that how can these be more transferable to contexts like Pakistan?
Well, Germany is not sustainable. So we are just doing a little bit different on education. But I think what Germany did well is using the opportunity to have the international conference after the UN General Assembly adopted the UNESCO roadmap. And then Berlin, the government invited all ESD activists to Berlin to have an international kickoff for the ESD 2030 network. And this kickoff helped that our government feels a little bit responsible to implement UNESCO ESD 2030. And this was quite interesting. NROM or ESD activists, they proposed, can you not host the conference in Germany? And they said, yes, we can do this ESD kickoff conference in Germany. But having this conference in Berlin really started a process inside the German government for more and more ESD. So this is always helpful, how to make your government linked to these international processes towards more ESD, towards more sustainability. This was, I think, one of the best moves that people convinced our government to have this ESD kickoff conference. Now we need conferences implementing ESD 2030, and we need engaged young people to take part in the debate on and what's next, what's coming up after the SDGs, what comes next after the Agenda 2030. And we need something much more ambitious. And we need a debate inside civil society right now to make pressure on governments and on the international level, international organizations, that even in times of crisis, it's more urgent to have a beyond 2030 agenda and not saying, no, there's too much trouble in the world, we cannot have a 2030 follow-up process because first we have to deal with the other problems. No, it's very important to have this covering framework, implement Agenda 2030, implement the SDGs, and start to discuss what do we need next. And we need the discussion in an international South-North, South-South dialogue to really come together on common goals and common approaches.
Thank you for the detailed answer. To the audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. I will let you speak, and if you want to type in the chat, then you can. Pervez and then Shah next.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you so much for your very, very amazing insights. I've always loved ESG discussions that we had in the past as well. Today, I've noted a lot of things that were really new for me, even though I've been reading a lot of stuff on ESD and I've been trying to understand how this general and specific ESD works. So one thing that really grabbed my attention was the division of societies for unity. That was really an amazing thing, where you are trying to divide the society on the basis of what are the needs of the specific societal structures and how can you unify them for a common good, like for sustainable development. In Pakistan, we have issues with the democratic structures. There are very basic issues with the democratic structure. They are a bit fragile, so we cannot think about how to divide the societies in sects or in packets and then come together for the unity. So what would be your suggestion for the youth that is sitting here and listening to you, like you have been organizing the MIT mission with the North Rhine-Westphalia environmental ministry, and you have had encounters with youth in Germany overall. What would be your suggestion for the youth from Pakistan who are watching you sitting here, and maybe after this session we might upload some information templates? What would be your suggestion for all those readers?
Yeah, thanks for this question, because in Germany we feel the pressure of right-wing parties. We are a little bit afraid of upcoming local elections, that right-wing undemocratic forces can really be even stronger end of the year than they are now. And what is our approach? The easy answer is talk and listen. And talk and listen not only inside your bubble, but find places and moments where you can talk with other parts of society. This is one lesson learned. And we had some interesting seminars on how to talk about transformation with conservative actors in society. And yeah, there was one lecture from Klimafakten, and he said, yes, first of all, you are the wrong person talking with them because you are from the green and left bubble. Second is they will never understand transformation. You have to use completely different words and talk with them and see what their values are, because they have different values than you in your bubble have. And when we want to make transformation a successful project, we have to understand the values and the goals in life of other people. And then we can bring transformation to a better ending. In the moment, we create a lot of resistance in Germany by people. They are fearing they are losing the cars, the nice cars with a burning fuel engine. They are feared to lose their jobs. They are feared to lose their houses because they cannot afford the rent. And this is not creating motivation to take part in transformation, but this is creating resistance. And we need to be much better listeners to their problems, to their fears, and then develop solutions together. Otherwise, we risk our democracy, and what we learn is to develop or create or manage transformation in a way that we strengthen democracy.
Thank you.
One last thought. It's a special view from Germany in Europe. Shaping transformation in a way that we strengthen democracy and strengthen the European Union, because the right-wing forces are trying to destroy democracy, and they are trying to destroy the European Union. And this is the one big peace project which gives so much hope to so many people that we really have to fight for transformation and the European Union at the same time. But sorry, this was just our German European view to the transformation problems we have.
Thank you. We have Shesha with the next question, if you can unmute and then.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephen, and all the stakeholders. It's a rare moment for us in Pakistan where many of the stakeholders that we are working on ESD, we never come together for such a meeting. So thanks to you, Stephen, we are here together and learning from all the good ideas. Some few questions that you can also help us address is that our government seems like not so much interested in ESD. What is the way out when the government is not so interested, or even the stakeholders are rarely ready to collaborate? I mean, I tell my students that my favorite goal is SDG 17. Without it, we cannot do much. And the second question that we all are facing as a problem as youth-led stakeholders doing things in ESD is funding opportunities, funding windows. Usually they are just for registered, well-established NPOs. So how does climate finance or finance for ESD trickle down to youth-led organizations who are working on the grassroots level? Thank you.
Yeah, the first answer was, the first question was a bit easier than the second one. How to motivate a government to do ESD? Do what ESD is, what the content of ESD is, but don't call it ESD. We have the problem that sometimes in schools, we enter the school and say, what about ESD in your school? And they say, yes, it's Mrs. So-and-so, and she's doing it 1 hour per week. we cannot create a sustainable society with this little add-on thing. What we need to do is that all education is strengthening human rights and preserving the livelihood. So all education can support people in taking part in supporting the environmental situation and supporting the social situation without calling it ESD. So just check what is your main goal and say, you, the decision makers, you need safe space, you need fresh air, and here is our proposal how you can have fresh air, how you can have healthy mobility solutions, and so on. Yes, we have the same problem here because people think that everything which is linked to climate is also linked to the Green Party, which is sometimes making it a little bit difficult for the conservatives to think about climate. And the second question I try to refuse because even in Germany, climate education for sustainable development, the financial situation is getting worse. So yeah, my easy answer is good luck and find opportunities in your situation. Maybe you find opportunities with local enterprises because they need motivated staff members, they need healthy staff, they need safe ways of traveling to the enterprise, and so on. So this could be a solution. Then there are still some international foundations helping grassroots organizations. There are very good opportunities in South-North cooperations. When you have partner high schools, partner universities, there could be some interesting exchanges. But even the situation in Germany is getting more and more difficult. And with every presentation I give, I have to reduce the amount of staff members we have, because financial situation is getting worse for us here as well.
Thank you, Stefan. Next, we have Farhana Salim with the question. Farhana, are you there?
Yes. Sorry, I'm driving. There's a bit of chaos in the signal. Can I go ahead and ask my question?
Yes.
Yes. Right. Stefan, thank you so much for such a brilliant presentation. A small introduction is I happen to be working with BMZ's, German BMZ's implementing partner GIZ, if you're aware. I work with GIZ Pakistan sector support program in Pakistan, which is TVAT program, and I have been recently assigned as a focal person with the ECC cluster as well that looks after the energy and the climate change aspects of which has also made me more interested in the green skills, as well as the fact that I've recently helped author the national CVAT policy, which is very near adoption, which also touches upon the green skills aspect, as well as some academic interest being as a policy expert. I'm also looking into it. It is a part of my interest and academic as well as professional. So my question again relates to where I come from. You have very beautifully covered the aspects that whatever works with environment, social and economic, which actually are the three pillars of sustainable development according to the Brundtland Commission report, which in 1987 had been started talking about it, conserving the future interests, and engaging with pursuits, economic pursuits, without compromising, the betterment of future generations. I'm sure you're well aware. What my question would be, how do you factor in, or how do you look at the technical vocational education and training as under the purview of ESD? I missed a bit of your talk. If you've already touched upon it, I'm so sorry. If not, kindly could you shed light on it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not sure if I. I'm not sure if I. Can you switch your mic off again? Okay. I'm not sure if I get all parts of your question. Maybe Didar, you can help me. I would love to continue this conversation via email afterwards. First point. Second point is teacher training and training in ESD is one of our priorities when we target the ministry, that ESD becomes really part of every teacher training, primary schools, secondary schools, high schools. And we see some success stories, and what is very important that ESD is not only part of the teacher training, but in the end, ESD is also relevant for your exam. So, I remember the English word is missing. That it's not an additional thing to learn, but it's in the basic structure what you need to know and what you need to prove in the exam. And when you have managed to get all the ESD stuff into the next tests and exams, then it's a kind of a small victory, because then it's not something which you can do as an add-on, but which is part of the general stuff to learn. But I think I missed some parts of your question, so it would be wonderful if you can address me afterwards via email. And I can send all the slides, or the organizers will send all the slides to the participants afterwards.
Thank you, Stefan. I'll connect to you on green skills later. Thank you so much.
That's great. Bye.
Thank you. And I guess we'll go with the last question from Kiram, and then, we are almost on the time. Kiram.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Sayyid Kiram from ClimateWatch, Pakistan. So my question is quite simple, but yet a little bit technical. What I want to ask is, when countries like Pakistan try to learn from international models, there is always a risk of adapting approaches that does not fully fit in the context of in the local context, right? So from your perspective and expertise, how can countries like Pakistan ensure that these ideas can be adapted meaningfully rather than just copying them? So that's my question. Hope you got it.
The easy answer is I cannot answer this because I'm not from Pakistan, and it's really part of your work to make the translation of the UNESCO ESD 2030 into the Pakistani situation. With the handprint, there's an international process which is called handprint care. In Germany, we empower people to really address members of parliament, members of town councils very directly with very harsh and direct demands. But in the international situation, this might not be appropriate. So handprint care is much more adapted to the situation in the global south, where the governmental situation is more difficult than in Germany, where political behavior is seen in different ways, and where you have to act much more carefully than in more or less functioning democracies. So handprint care could be one answer, and a lot of talks with decision makers in Pakistan when you say this is a UNESCO program, the internationally agreed program, and how can we bring this into life in Pakistan, can be a good starter for exchange and development of the situation in Pakistan. We try to make a more regular exchange with members of parliament who are responsible for education. We try to develop kind of a little bit relationship with them so that there is a little bit of trust. What do we want? What do they want? How can we help them in their work? And so they learn what we want to reach. And with this relationship, we can help them to shift education system a little bit more towards ESD. We do more, not so much trainings on the climate crisis, but we do more trainings on advocacy. How can people talk to their decision makers? How can I start a process towards different goals? And would be interesting to see what kind of advocacy can work in Pakistan, what kind of alliances helps young people to be protected in their work doing advocacy work. So what helps them in their engagement to do this in a safe and well-informed manner? Just some ideas, but I'm not a Pakistani expert, but some thoughts out of my context.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Didar. Thank you again, Stefan, for your experience, sharing the experience that you have gained from working with the ESD team at Germanwatch and North Rhine-Westphalia. And of course, it's different dynamics. In Global South, in countries like Pakistan, you have different structures working there. And again, unsustainable structures lead to unsustainable actions and leave you with no solutions. So this basic ESD lecture will serve as the cornerstone for developing how we as youth from Pakistan and how we as the social actors in Pakistan would go on with developing some plans, some things, actual materialistic things to implement ESD or to start to work on ESD and make it more accessible and understandable for the people. And thank you so much for being with us. It was really nice having you, and it was really informative. I learned a lot of things, and hope the people on the chat and who could join us today learned a lot of things. And now we have to ask ourselves the question that what we can do in Pakistan. Should we start something like teach the teacher programs, teach the students programs about ESD and how education for sustainable development can lead to sustainability overall, because we are from a country which is on the forefront of climate crisis, not only climate crisis, but on the verge of collapse as a society, because we have too much unsustainability around us, and it's making it even worse with the climate change affecting Pakistan directly. So I think we are left with just 5 minutes, and I'm not sure if we have time to ask the audience about their experience and maybe ask them how ClimateWatch and the partner organizations can try to promote ESD in Pakistan within the next 6 months or so. We'll try to send you the questions via email, and I'm sorry for not, on behalf of the ClimateWatch, to not contact you before, according to the time zone. There was a time shift in German time zone on 29th of March, and we couldn't send emails on proper time. Yeah, over to you, Didar, for the closing remarks, and probably, thank you.
Thank you, Pervez, and a very heartfelt thank you to Stefan and Germanwatch for giving their time and for giving this lecture. It was very insightful. I have kind of pages of notes taken, and I hope everyone in the participant have learned something new. And as Pervez said, that it's now time for us to ask the question that what are the steps we are going to take, and as the young people, as the generation in Pakistan who are going to build the future of Pakistan, it's on us that how we are taking initiatives, and this was a kind of start. And we ClimateWatch are building coalition with the organizations, and with young people we'll try to do more of such sessions in future, and also we'll try to collaborate and we'll work on such initiatives. Again, a very heartfelt thank you to Stephen and Germanwatch, and also to all the participants for joining. We'll share a feedback form via email after the call. Yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good time.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you so much for this event. It was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.